Hi everyone, welcome to S&S Bioinfo. Today's topic is human heart and blood pressure. Human beings are highly complex organisms. We have well-developed organ systems in the body. Circulatory system is one of the most important organ system of the human body. Circulatory system transport various substances like hormones, nutrients, salts, water and gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide. Heart is one of the most important parts of the human circulatory system. It is a muscular contractile organ which pumps blood to different parts of the body. Thus it provides oxygen to every cell, each and every cell of the body. Now let's study the morphology, the external features of human heart. First of all, let's understand the position of the heart. Our heart is the vital organ of the body. It is located near the left lung in the thoracic cavity. It is protected by a specific membrane called pericardium. Pericardium. Pericardium is a double membranous structure. It has pericardial fluid which protects the heart from external shocks and injuries. Our heart and lungs are double protected by a rib cage. Our rib cage is formed of the chest bone or sternum, the vertebral column, the backbone, along with the 12 pairs of ribs. So let's come to the morphology of the heart. The size of human heart is somewhat clenched fist size. This is my clenched fist size. This is the average size of my heart. The color of the human heart is reddish brown because it is made up of muscles and blood capillaries, reddish brown in color, along with the pericardial membrane. The shape is, the upper part is broad and the lower part is conical. So all of you look at the diagram here on the board. You can see the cross section of the diagrammatic representation of the heart. The upper part is somewhat broad, that is called the base of the heart. Base. The lower part is conical in shape, that is called apex. The base is the anterior part, the apex is the posterior part of the heart. Next, let's understand the anatomy, the internal structure of human heart. Here you can see the cross section of human heart. Human heart has 4 chambers, 2 atria and 2 ventricles. 2 atria or auricles and 2 ventricles. So here you can see the 4 chambers. The human heart has a right chambers and the left chambers. That means right and left atria and right and left ventricles. Here I just label the parts: right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. So right atrium and right ventricle, left atrium and left ventricle. Next, let's familiarize the walls of the human heart. Walls or septum. Walls or septum of the human heart. Suppose these are the 4 chambers of human heart. So right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle and the left ventricle. There is a wall in between the right atrium and the left atrium that is called interatrial septum. This is interatrial septum. Then similarly, there is a wall in between the right and left ventricles that is called interventricular septum. Interventricular septum. There is a horizontal wall or septum in between the atria and the ventricles that is called atrioventricular septum. Ventricular septum. These are the three important walls of the human heart. Interatrial septum, between the atria, interventricular septum, atrioventricular septum. Then the walls of the atria are thin compared to the walls of the ventricles, because the atria have to pump blood only to the respective ventricles, while the ventricles have to pump blood to different parts of the body. So the walls are thicker in nature in the case of ventricles, because they have to apply more force to pump blood to different parts of the body. The next parts are blood vessels. Blood vessels. There are certain blood vessels which are associated with the human heart. Let's familiarize them. Certain blood vessels bring blood to the heart. Some blood vessels carry the blood from the heart to different parts of the body. First of all, vena cava. Vena cava. Vena cava is the largest vein in the human body. We have already learned about the arteries and veins in the previous class. Arteries are the blood vessels that carry the pure blood or oxygen-rich blood from the heart to different parts of the body except the pulmonary artery. All veins carry impure blood or carbon dioxide-rich blood from the body parts to the heart except the pulmonary vein. So here the vena cava is the largest vein which brings the blood from different parts of the body. That means through the systemic veins then to the heart. So here there are two types of vena cava. They are superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. Superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. So look at the diagram. You can see the superior vena cava. This is superior vena cava. This is the inferior vena cava. Here superior vena cava brings blood from that means impure blood from the upper parts of the body to the right atrium. Similarly, the inferior vena cava brings the blood from the lower parts of the body, the impure blood from the lower parts of the body to the right atrium. So that is the function of these two vena cava, the superior and the inferior vena cava. The next blood vessels are the pulmonary aorta and the systemic aorta. First of all, pulmonary aorta. Pulmonary aorta. In this diagram, you can see a blue color part and the white color part. The blue color part indicates the impure blood or carbon dioxide rich blood, while the white part indicates the pure blood or oxygen rich blood. Here the right atrium and the right ventricle consists of impure blood or carbon dioxide rich blood. From the right ventricle, the blood is pumped into the respective lungs, the right and left lungs, to the main blood vessel called the pulmonary aorta. Here you can see the pulmonary aorta. The pulmonary aorta divides into the left and the right pulmonary arteries. Here this is the left pulmonary artery. This is the right pulmonary artery. Right and left pulmonary arteries, they go to the lungs, and what happens at the lungs? Purification of the blood. Next one, systemic aorta. Systemic aorta. Here you look at the left side, the left atrium and the left ventricle. From here, the pure blood is pumped into different parts of the body through the major aorta. That is the systemic aorta. You look at the arrow, the flow of blood. This is the systemic aorta. The systemic aorta divides to form arteries. You can see the arch, that aortic arch that is directed to different parts of the body. That means the blood is pumped into different parts of the body through arteries. That is about the systemic aorta. Then pulmonary veins. Pulmonary veins. You know that the only vein which pumps the pure blood to the heart, that is the pulmonary vein. Here you can see the left atrium receives the pure blood from the lungs. After purification, the pure blood is pumped to the left atrium through the pulmonary vein. Here you can see only one pulmonary vein, that is left pulmonary vein. So from that side you can that side the right pulmonary vein. So from both sides, the right and left pulmonary veins give pure blood to the left atrium. These are the associated blood vessels of the human heart. Then let's familiarize about the valves of the human heart. Valves. Valves prevent the backward flow of blood. There are mainly three types of valves in the human heart. First of all, tricuspid valve. Tricuspid valve. The tricuspid valve is a valve with the three flaps which prevent the backward flow of blood from the right ventricle to the right atrium. So look at the diagram here. You can see the valve, the representation of the valve. This is a tricuspid valve which prevent the backward flow of blood from the right ventricle to the right atrium. Then another valve, bicuspid valve, is on the left side, that is bicuspid or mitral valve with the two flaps. Here you can see the bicuspid or mitral valve. On the left side, the second valve is bicuspid valve. Bicuspid valve. So tricuspid on the right side, bicuspid on the left side. There is another set of valves called the semilunar valves. Semilunar valves. Semilunar valves are half moon shaped valves. Suppose half moon shaped, that is not visible here. So you can see the representation of the valves. The semilunar valves are present in between the ventricles and the respective blood vessels. First one is in between the right ventricle and the pulmonary aorta. First set of semilunar valves are present in between the right ventricle and the main aorta, pulmonary aorta, or we can say pulmonary arteries. Pulmonary arteries. Another set of semilunar valves are present in between the left ventricle and the systemic aorta. Left ventricle and the systemic aorta. So look at the diagram now. You can see the semilunar valves. Here, this is the first valve. You can see the direction of the blood through this right atrium, then through the tricuspid valve, then the right ventricle. Then it is pumped to the respective pulmonary arteries through this valve. This is called semilunar valves. In between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery. These are the pulmonary left and right pulmonary arteries which directs the blood into the respective lungs. Here you can see another valve, semilunar valves in between the left ventricle and the systemic aorta. Here you can see left atrium, left ventricle, then the semilunar valve through which the oxygen-rich blood is pumped into the systemic aorta, then to the arteries to different parts of the body. So these are the three main types of valves present in the human heart. Tricuspid on the right side, bicuspid on the left side, semilunar valves in between the respective ventricles and the blood vessels. Then next, let's understand that how the blood is pumped through the heart. I have told you before that heart is a muscular contractile organ. It is made up of cardiac muscle which is involuntary in nature. It is auto-excitable. Our heart is auto-excitable in nature because it has a specific nodal tissue which is located at the right upper corner of the right atrium. It is known as sinoatrial node. So this is the right atrium, is the right upper corner is called SA node, sinoatrial node or SA node. SA node is also known as pacemaker of the heart. Pacemaker. of the heart. From the sinoatrial node, there are numerous nerves which are that are directed towards the wall of the, that means that spread along the walls of the atria, and it is connected with another node called the AV node. This is called the AV node, atrioventricular node, because the entire walls are controlled by nerves, a set of nerves, SA node to AV node through nerve fibers. From the AV node, that a group of nerve fibers run along the walls of the ventricles. This is the walls of the ventricles and the entire part of the entire wall of the ventricle, a set of nerve fibers. So the excitability of the heart is initiated. The excitable nature of the heart is controlled by the sinoatrial node or pacemaker. So I told you that it is auto-excitable because the SA node is made up of a specific nodal tissue. It is excited without any external stimulus. This excitation, this contraction, the rhythmicity of the heart is begun at the sinoatrial node. So it is spread from the SA node to the AV node through the nerve fibers. So what happens? Contraction of the heart occurs. So thereafter what happens? The impulses, nerve impulses travel along through the ventricular wall, then that interventricular septum, then to the walls of the ventricles. The nerve impulse spread along the entire wall of the ventricles. It leads to the contraction of the ventricular chambers. This is the way the heart pumps blood from the atria to the ventricles, from the ventricles to the different parts of the body. The contraction, the rhythmicity of the heart is maintained by the pacemaker of the heart. Then let's understand how the blood is circulated through the heart. Let's begin from the body parts. Body parts means each tissue, that is the cells contain carbon dioxide rich blood, that is the impure blood, that is collected by the vena cava. Vena cava. So from vena cava bring the blood to the right atrium, right atrium. Then it goes to the right ventricle, right ventricle. From there it goes to the respective lungs, to the pulmonary arteries, pulmonary arteries, to the lungs. After purification of the lungs, the blood is pumped, the oxygen rich blood is pumped to the left atrium, to the pulmonary veins, pulmonary veins, pulmonary veins, to the left atrium, then to the left ventricle, then to the systemic aorta, or simply aorta, systemic aorta, then to arteries, then finally the body parts. So look at the diagram, then we will learn how the blood is circulated through the heart. First, from the body part, superior and inferior vena cava collects the impure blood, the carbon dioxide rich blood from the different parts of the body, that is reached at the right atrium. From the right atrium, you can follow the arrow. From the right atrium, the blood is pumped into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, it goes to the pulmonary aorta, then to the left and right pulmonary arteries. Where? To the lungs. To the lungs. For what? Purification, because the lungs are the site of exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. After purification, the carbon dioxide rich blood will turn into oxygen rich blood. The oxygen rich blood or pure blood is transported through the pulmonary veins. So this is the pulmonary, left pulmonary vein, and right also, that is given to the left atrium. The left atrium, it goes to the left ventricle, left atrium to the left ventricle. Then through the valve it goes to the systemic aorta, then to different arteries, to different parts of the body. Here, the blood enters the heart twice during one complete cycle. This one complete blood circulation is called a cardiac cycle. Cardiac cycle. It takes only 0.8 seconds. 0.8 seconds. So within this particular period of time, what would happen? The circulation will be completed. Blood enters the heart twice during one cardiac cycle. So how the blood is pumped from the atria to the ventricles? Because of the contraction of the atria that is initiated by the pacemaker. By the contraction of the atria, the blood is pumped to the respective ventricles. Again, the ventricles pump the blood to the respective blood vessels through different parts of the body by the same contraction, because the contraction is spread to the walls of the ventricles through the nerve fibers through as electrical impulses. So the blood is pumped to different parts of the body. Once again, you look at the diagrammatic representation of the circulatory pathway of the blood. Here you can see I just divide this as the circulation of the impure blood and the circulation of the pure blood. From the body parts to the lungs, that the impure blood. That means circulation of impure blood, that is carbon dioxide rich blood. From the lungs, after purification, the blood is called a pure blood. That is oxygen rich blood. So here you can easily understand that the circulation of the impure blood through the heart and the circulation of the pure blood through the heart. Why there is such a separation of oxygen rich blood and the deoxygenated blood in the human heart? Because human beings are highly complex organisms. We need more energy for various life activities, and also we are warm-blooded animals. To maintain a constant body temperature, our body requires particular amount of energy. So we are also moving animals. We show various movements. So for that also we need some amount of energy. So our heart has to pump blood to different parts of the body, the pure blood to the different parts of the body to fulfill the needs of the cells or tissues of the body, and at the same time it collects the impure blood from the different parts of the body to purify it for the further needs. Next topic is blood pressure. Blood pressure. The blood pressure is a pressure exerted by the blood on the walls of the blood vessels in which it is present. It is of two types, systolic pressure and the diastolic pressure. First one, systolic pressure, and the diastolic pressure. So, have you heard about systole and diastole? Systole is the contraction phase of the chambers of the heart, while the diastole is the relaxation phase of the chambers of the heart. So, ventricular contraction, ventricular relaxation, the atrial contraction and the atrial relaxation. Nowadays, the blood pressure is measured by an instrument called sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer. Both sphygmomanometer and stethoscope are required for measuring the blood pressure of a person. Now you can see the images of both sphygmomanometer and the stethoscope. In this, the blood pressure is measured in terms of air pressure when it becomes equal to the blood pressure. Changes in sound of blood flow is detected with the help of stethoscope, whose receiver is placed over the brachial artery just below the elbow joint. The systolic pressure is recorded when first time tap-like sound is heard, while diastolic pressure is recorded when the loud sound starts muffling. Next, let's understand about the abnormal conditions of the blood pressure. You might have heard about hypertension or high BP and the hypotension, the low BP. First of all, let's think about hypertension or high BP. Hypertension. It is an abnormal condition characterized by persistent high blood pressure in a person. It is about 150 to 90 mmHg. 150 to 90 mmHg. Here 150 is the systolic pressure. Systolic pressure. While 90 is the diastolic pressure. Diastolic pressure. What's the normal range of blood pressure? 120, 80 mm Hg. That I have already told you in the previous slide. That means 120 is the systolic pressure, 80 is the diastolic pressure. That's the normal range of blood pressure in the human beings. This is the abnormal condition, high blood pressure, 150 to 90. The main causes of the hypertension or high blood pressure are obesity or overeating, cholesterol-rich diet, smoking, emotional stress, physical stress, and some other kind of diseases. Have you heard about one coronary artery disease called atherosclerosis? Atherosclerosis. It's a condition in which the blood vessels, the wall of the blood vessels are deposited by cholesterol, calcium and fat. So what will happen? The lumen will be decreased. The arteries have narrow lumen and thick walls. When it is deposited by the unwanted substances like cholesterol and fat, that cavity will be decreased, so the blood pressure will be high. So it leads to the rupturing of the blood vessels. Hypertension or high blood pressure is also known as silent killer. It may rupture the walls of the blood vessel. That means it leads to the hemorrhage, the bleeding of the blood vessels. It leads to a disease called a stroke. It is if the carotid artery, the main artery which pumps blood to the brain, if it is ruptured, it leads to the stroke in the brain. Similarly, the coronary artery, the main artery, the coronary artery, if it is ruptured by these causes, what would happen? It leads to heart attack in such person. So, stroke and heart attack are two results of hypertension. So that the hypertension is also known as the silent killer. The next abnormal condition is hypotension. Hypotension or low BP. It is an abnormal condition characterized by persistent low blood pressure in human beings. It is about 100 to 50 mmHg. 100 to 50 mmHg. Here 100 is the systolic pressure. Systolic pressure. While 50 is the diastolic pressure. Diastolic pressure. The main causes of hypotension are the dilation of the blood vessels, rupturing of the blood vessels, excessive loss of blood from the body, the failure of action of pumping action of the heart. All those may lead to fainting in some people. The values of both the hypertension and hypotension are different in different person. Next, let's understand the factors affecting blood pressure. They are age, elasticity of the blood vessels and exercise. The factors affecting blood pressure are age, exercise and elasticity of the blood vessels. First of all, age. Both the values of systolic and diastolic pressure increase with the age. Second, exercise. When we do physical exercise, the heartbeat increases. That means the heart rate increases, thereby the cardiac output also increases. It leads to increase in blood pressure. The next, elasticity of the blood vessel. The elasticity of the blood vessel decreases when the wall of the blood vessel is deposited by cholesterol and calcium in it. So these three main factors normally affect the blood pressure of a person. I hope you understood this portion well. With this, I conclude my session. Thank you and have nice moments.